I mean, because Christianity, at the end of the day, with no proof, everything is mythology. Everything. With no proof. With proof, then you examine the proof. It's super simple. And anybody that argues against that is just, you're just biased. You have your own ideas. If you have some proof that there was a God, that this God had one son, and he made this son come down and get the fuck beat out of him and nailed to a board so that we could all have no sin. Can you show me some studies?
That's the old Joe Rogan and one of my favourite podcasters. Welcome to BibleCraft, where we build truth in Minecraft's blocky wilderness and debate God like it's life or death. I'm your host, an AI voiceover written by a real human who genuinely cares. And you're now officially a disciple. Subscribe, smash the bell, and join our Discord link below to claim your spot in the Garden of Eden. That's the world I will be playing in during my videos, and you can see it yourself. Stake your claim and post a sign on your lot. Just us, your pickaxe, and the questions you're too afraid to ask. Stick around, I will be explaining Joe's conversion story, and it may flip your reality. Here's the breakdown. Joe Rogan, 57-year-old media titan, has shifted from Big Bang skeptic to regular churchgoer. Christian apologist Wesley Huff confirms consistent attendance and ongoing dialogues on Scripture's reliability. Rogan's questions aren't casual. They probe the veracity of ancient texts and the necessity of salvation rather than mere moral example. In the next segment, we'll cut to clips of Rogan engaging with Huff, laying out the exact moments when doubt turned into belief.
When I was in the hospital, I'd wake up and there'd be pinpricks in my legs because they'd be testing where the reactions were, and they'd have used a syringe. And so I'd wake up and there'd be these tiny little pinpricks in my legs because they'd been testing while I was asleep to see what the kind of, whether it was registering neurologically with anything. But I couldn't feel anything. I was fully a paraplegic.
Whoa.
Yeah, but going back to that, I experienced this, what I consider to be a true supernatural experience, in that I walked into the hospital to the doctors that had overseen me, and they were the first ones that used the word miracle. They said, we really don't have any type of medical explanation. And mainly because there was no atrophy. Because of the cutoff of the communication, my muscles in those 30 days were fine. And it's a short amount of time, but they said there should be something, and we're picking up nothing.
That's crazy. Because I've broken limbs before and had them in casts, and just in the 6 weeks that you have a cast on, you have massive atrophy.
Yeah.
Based on Joe's feedback, we can tell he isn't naive to the fact that this is anything except astounding. But I don't think this is why he had Wes on the show. That part is next. And it has to do with the resurrection.
Claim that they say they saw Jesus resurrected. Like, there's something different that goes on there, that they're like, this is a miracle, right? Dead people don't usually rise from the dead.
So what is your personal belief when it comes to the resurrection? What do you think do you have a belief, or do you just try to interpret the text and try to see what is the message?
This is where I think he is having a change of mind. When Wes comes at him from a historical point of view, not a symbolistic faith, Joe can't help but think a little deeper, on something I think he has already been thinking deeply on.
As a historian, I do think it is a historical question. You have a guy who objectively lived, he objectively died, and then individuals close to his inner circle claim that they see him not dead.
Right.
Again.
This is a highly unusual activity.
Highly unusual.
Right. So, but it's hard when you're dealing with illiterate populations, you're dealing with thousands of years of time, you're dealing with an oral tradition, and then you have us sitting here talking about it in 2024, trying to figure it at the end of 2024, trying to figure this out. Literally the end.
Yeah.
Last couple of days. It's very difficult for anybody who thinks of themselves as an intelligent person who's secular to even entertain the possibility that someone died and come back to life.
Let's be clear, he isn't trying to put down the resurrection here. Instead, he is bolstering the argument for it. When Joe talks about UFOs or conspiracy theories, he doesn't just go along with what's being said. He ruthlessly questions and tries to find out what's true. And he just provided Wes with the opportunity of a lifetime. Let's see what he says.
And I get that. But we've already talked about the fact that we don't think that the only thing that exists is matter and motion. We as in
Right.
you and I, right?
Right.
Like we believe that there's something else going on in this world that's a little bit crazy.
There's something else.
And
yeah.
and that to, I think, exclude that, I think excludes something that you're kind of putting blinders on.
Yeah.
For. And you do have, I mean, you're right in terms of all of these ancient conventions and the ways that things were spread around. But the Gospels are written in the lifetime of the eyewitnesses. And they're written in this period of time where you have groups of individuals who could have fact-checked those things. So,
How do you fact check someone coming back from the dead?
well, if you,
How many people saw his body, right?
well, Paul says that 400 people saw him all at once.
400 people saw the crucifixion.
No, saw the resurrected
resurrection.
Jesus. Yeah, 1 Corinthians 15, Paul says that Jesus appeared to the disciples, and then he appeared to 400 people all at once. I mean, if we read the Gospel of Luke and the Gospel of Luke and Acts, so same author wrote these both documents, he says that Jesus was walking around teaching them for 40 days after he was resurrected from the dead. And so these are written within a time period when you have people who would have seen Jesus' ministry, who were there, say, at something like the feeding of the 5,000, who could have been able to verify or debunk some of these things that are being said. And you go from a bunch of scared guys who, because Jesus wasn't the only messianic figure who arose and claimed to be the Messiah.
Right.
There were a number of individuals both prior to and after Jesus, but they die and the movement dies with them.
This is a fantastic explanation from Wes, handles obvious objections, and is fact-driven. However, this is not Joe's first rodeo on this topic, and what he says next is clear doubt creeping back in. Watch how Wes handles this.
Do you think it's possible that he didn't die? And do you think it's possible that they thought he was dead? Because that does happen. There was actually a case very recently where a guy was about to be harvested for organs. They thought he was dead, and this guy started moving again and came back to life. It's a very, very bizarre case because his family had been told that he was going to be harvested for organs. They were preparing for that. And
Yeah.
This guy comes back.
Yeah, I mean, we know a lot about Roman crucifixion, and we
Pretty
know
brutal.
that, and we know that they did their job well.
Yeah.
And so, in fact, if you look at, say, very skeptical biblical scholars, like non-believing, atheist, agnostic Christian scholars, they will say if we can know anything about Jesus, like they'll cast a doubt on a lot of the things that we read about in the Gospels in terms of the actual historical Jesus of Nazareth. They'll say one thing we can be sure of is that he died by crucifixion under Pontius Pilate. Because we have not just multiple attested documents that we refer to as the New Testament, but Roman and Greek and Jewish writers refer to that claim afterwards and talk about the fact that you have this guy, and it's mocked within earliest Christianity. So one of our earliest, in fact, not one of, the earliest depiction of Jesus on the cross is called the Alexamenos Graphido. And it's probably from the end of the 1st century. And it's it depicts an individual with their arms raised in an act of worship, worshiping a man with a donkey's head who's being crucified. Whoa. And right beside it, it says Alexamenos worships his God in Greek.
Whoa.
And it's mocking, right? Because crucifixion was for the lowest of the low. It was for like slaves. In fact, if you were a Roman citizen, you were banned from being crucified.
Who was it that got crucified upside down?
Peter.
Why? Was it because like regular crucifixion wasn't good enough for him? Or what was he didn't deserve it because Christ had gone through it?
Well, so the story is that they say, we're going to crucify you. And he says, it's like too big of an honor to die like my Lord. And they say,
Oh,
well, we can
boy.
fix that.
Oh, jeez.
You saw Joe Rogan declare, without proof, Christianity is a myth. And you watched him wrestle with the evidence laid out by Wesley Huff. That back and forth wasn't just entertainment. It was the same conversation every skeptic wants to have. After digging into early manuscripts, archaeological finds, and logical challenges to naturalistic explanations, Joe didn't just nod along on a podcast. He started attending church on a regular basis. His story shows you how it really happens. A direct demand for proof met with clear, concise answers, and a willingness to keep asking questions until the skeptic crosses the threshold. Joe's now in the pews, not because of feel-good rhetoric, but because the evidence was undeniable and the dialogue respectful, yet unyielding. This video isn't about celebrating one man's decision to follow Christ. It's about giving you that same framework, arming you with the facts and the conversational flow that turns doubt into genuine curiosity. When you combine rigorous knowledge with authentic living, showing integrity and compassion, you don't just win arguments, you guide people into a relationship with Jesus. So take Joe's journey as your case study, learn the data, practice the exchange, and then live it out. Let your actions back up your words and watch as skeptics move from the question, where's the proof, to how do I get involved? That's how belief spreads, and that's why you're here. That's it for today, disciples. Data wins debates, but life wins hearts. You've seen the proof points and learned the tactics. Now it's time to model the message. Live your conviction visibly. Integrity in your work, compassion in your actions, consistency in your words. When historical evidence meets real-world example, you become the final argument. So here's your assignment. Identify one belief you defend intellectually and demonstrate it practically this week. Volunteer your time, extend grace to someone who can't repay it, or invite a skeptic into a conversation over coffee, armed with both facts and genuine care. That synergy of truth and testimony is what converts more than any chart or manuscript. Stay disciplined, stay informed, and above all, embody the gospel in every block you place, in Minecraft and in real life. Subscribe for more strategic breakdowns. Join our Discord to share your real-world wins. And get ready to build a world where belief isn't just argued, it's lived.
It is truth.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, wow.
Wow.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
Because
Wow. 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 How many times has this happened in history?